In case you just joined us, this is Inside Pages on Metro Television. My name is Mo Raudu. I did indicate that we're looking at three very, very important issues that have come up in the course of the week. One has to do with the 25 million Ghana cedis, which has been doled out by the Finance Ministry, or solicited by the government through the Finance Ministry towards the building of the National Cathedral. Some Ghanaians are enraged. Some don't see anything wrong with it. We'll look into the details of that particular issue. But we'll start with the just ended NPP Regional Delegates Conference. As you do know, so far we're looking about 15 regions that have conducted its Regional Delegates Conference. 12 have maintained their regional chairman. One, which is the Eastern region, there was no the incumbent did not even go at all. So there were new guys who came on board, and there's a new guy, there's a new kid on the block. Central region is holding its delegates conference today, and so we would go to Akwesiado, who is our Central Regional correspondent, to give us details on how the Central Regional Delegates Conference is going. But in the meantime, let's speak to Dr. Smart Sarpong. Now, Dr. Smart Sarpong is a research fellow with the Kumasi Technical Institute. And he has made some very interesting findings about, in fact, he made some very interesting findings about the Regional Delegates Conference even before, Technical University, not an institute. He made some very interesting findings even ahead of the Regional Delegates Conference, specific to the Ashanti region. And he also says that 73% of the delegates that he interacted with, he has spoken to, believe that the NPP has what it takes to break the 8. But he says the rest, which is about 27%, do not believe, or 26% do not believe that the NPP has what it takes to break the 8. Let's speak to him about this research finding. Dr. Smart Sarpong, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us on Inside Pages. It's good to have you.
Yes, Moro, good morning. Good to have you too.
Right. If you could speak up a little bit, I mean, that would be really helpful, sir.
Yeah. Is it better now?
I guess we can manage with this.
Okay, I'll speak up. I'll try and speak up a little.
Right. Okay. So, Doc, first of all, when you let me take your general comment about what you make of the outcome of the 15 regional or regions that have already, you can say, elected their regional chairman. The general outcome of the elections. What would your preliminary comments be?
Yeah, Moro. Good morning, and a very good morning to our cherished listeners and viewers. I was supposed to join by Zoom, but unfortunately my laptop is not closer, so sorry I couldn't join by Zoom. The general impression, if you ask me, has been that of a calm one, relatively calm one. You know, when you are working with people, and especially in a political party where a lot of interest comes to play, you expect people's sentiments to be high, disagreement, conflicts here and there. But I think largely the party instituted some measures that has been able to manage all these expected conflicts and misunderstandings and things like that. So the first praise perhaps will go to the committee that was in charge of conflict resolution. They were apt and prompt anytime conflicts arose. And I think not sufficiently, but at least to a large extent, their conclusions or resolutions to those conflicts ended well. I remember here in Ashanti, there were misunderstandings in respect of some 4 groups, 3 constituencies and 1 group that was the ESCON group. The Conflict Resolution Committee, together with the Regional Elections Committee, came to some conclusions that were not satisfactory, but at least it ended well. It brought peace, and eventually across all the 15 regions that organized the elections over the weekend, you realize relative peace. None of the regional centers where elections took place recorded anything fatal. I mean, there were a little also. So overall, on a scale of 1 to 100, I would say they did well, up to about 80%. And kudos would go to the various regional elections committees, and then the National Conflict Resolution Committee, that was headed by, I think, the MP for Kre and the local government minister and his team.
Okay.
So, yes, overall, that would be my assessment of what happened.
Now, Doc, the NPP wants to break the eight. The mantra which has been trumpeted since last year, 2021, has been that it's about breaking the eight, or they want to break the eight. But then you have a situation where most of the old guards have maintained or retained their seats. So unlike in the constituency elections where the dynamics changed quite, there was some kind of a seismic shift at the constituency level. At the regional level, we've seen most of the old guards being maintained.
Yeah.
Do you believe that for a party that intends to break the eight, can the party break the eight with these old guards, whom some of the same delegates were complaining when the party lost elections that they let them down?
Very well. So it has two sides to it.
Okay.
One is the assumption of an unchanged person. One is the assumption that the person that has been retained has not learned anything from his past. And then the second will be to the advantage of the NPP if we want to assume that those old guys have learned a lot of useful lessons from the lapses in the previous election. So if we are going by the first assumption that these are people who have not learned anything from the lapses of the previous election which they led, then the party is headed for doom. But if we want to stick to the assumption that they have learned many useful lessons and they are ready to amend the lapses in their leadership last 4 years, then we should be in for something good, because yes, it is better for the man who have learned useful lessons to lead. He would see the points where he fell in the previous elections, and when he gets there, he can better scale over that point. So it depends. If we want to assume that these people have learned useful lessons, and I want to believe, I'll be extremely surprised, Moro, if these leaders that have again gained the confidence of their delegates go the same old way that landed them in a net loss of about 30 or so seats in parliament. I'll be very, very surprised if these old guys who have been maintained do not change and have not learned any useful lessons that led to the general national net loss of the NPP of about negative 2.5% national. Then they don't mean it when they say they want to break the eight. But I want to believe that as humans as they are and as matured people as they are, they would have learned many useful lessons. And if that should play out, then they are better placed to lead, because yes, they would have in recent history realized where they failed, and when it gets there, they would do things different.
Right. Doc, there's been a lot of talk about money, the role of money characterizing the elections. In fact, some people believe that money is what produced majority of the persons today who are leading the party. So basically, they procured it.
Yeah.
You were there. What did you see? That's first question. Number two, are you concerned if indeed what we're being told is exactly the case? Because there were some we saw ourselves. In fact, our reporters came back and told us that they saw people, money's being exchanged, money's exchanging hands, and so on and so forth. I don't know the extent to which money played a role, and I need you to tell me this. It was the extent to which money played a role in electing the current crop of NPP leadership. And two, how concerned are you that we have a national elections coming up for the new patriotic party? And then, of course, we're going to have the presidential primaries. If the trend or the pattern or the trajectory continues, what kind of leaders would the NPP be electing for a party that believes it has what it takes to break the eight?
Great. This question has made the airways for a long time. It started in my, if my memory serves me right, it wasn't that prominent in the late 90s and the early 2000s, but somewhere around 2008, 2012, monetization of the entire political space has become part of our political discourse. The same people who speak against it, when they get the opportunity to contest again, they go with money. Somebody told me one funny story of a man of integrity who decided not to go with money and ended up getting 3. And then he came thanking all delegates that yes, he didn't come with money, but he got some 3 people who were faithful and voted for him, even though he didn't give out any money. He wants those 3 people to call him for a special reward, and it ended up that all 800 delegates were calling him that they were part of the 3 that did not that voted for him. So they have actually instituted it. And if you remember how the common law concept came into existence, there were practices and norms of groups of people which lasted for a long time, so became somehow acceptable and was coded as a law. So this thing they are doing has a very damning future for us. The end of it is going to be catastrophic if it becomes institutionalized, that now you need a certain amount of money before you can participate in a democratic process like what we are talking about. A former MP, yesterday I read in the graphic, one of the newspapers, that he said if we don't take care, drug barons, those who are able to trade and get money, fair or foul means, will take over parliament. And it looks like that's where we are heading towards. So yes, what we can do, you and I, Moro, I think what we can do is to speak against monetization of the political space, but much would depend on them. Very soon, NDC will also start their race, and we will hear the same thing. And these are the 2 major political parties. So it looks like, yes, we are doing our part by condemning it, but the core actors will not even go to the delegates without money. They will go. Specifically in what happened in Ashanti, as I observed, I went around in my conduct of the research. I asked about this money matter, and Moro, the delegates told me that they also just ended a contest that elected them into those various constituency executive positions, and they too spent some amount of money, relatively smaller. But then because of that, they welcome any delegate who comes to them and leaves them something small, if for nothing at all, to take care of their T&T and the day they wasted in meeting them, and then also to help them defray the cost they too incurred in the contest they also went. So that is the mindset of the delegate. They do not have specific amounts put down and saying, if you don't give us this amount, we are not going to vote for you. But you cannot take out the money matter, because from what they told me, what it means is that if any aspirant ever went to them and gave them nothing, it will appear that that person is not sensitive to the fact that they also just ended an election and they had some costs, debts incurred, and the person is not sensitive to the fact that they moved from wherever their villages to meet them at the constituency capital,
Okay.
and they spent the whole day. So it is a little sort of an acceptable something, only that no price or no amount has been stated. And the aspirants who went to them, as far as the delegates told me, gave them money in bulk. So it's like the whole constituency, maybe I'm giving you 5,000 in support of whatever, or for your T&T, and then they would share it amongst them, however they share it. So that is how the entire money thing came. And I heard some giving out 5,000, others 10,000 to constituencies. As to whether that influenced their votes, I don't think it did. Absolutely. It might have contributed to about 30% of the decision they took. But for the 70%, they relied on messages that came from the people and their personal love for the candidates. Here in Ashanti, or above all the things that were flying around in the media and anywhere, delegates told me, and that is the basis for which I estimated who was likely to win. And they told me that, yes, above all the things that are going on, they think Chama still has the charisma, the resilience to withstand the NDC's threat in Ashanti region. So yes, money might have played some role, but in my personal assessment, and it is based on which I estimated a win for Wontimi 57.8.
So
And
Doc,
if it was confirmed, then it means what they told me was the truth.
okay. So Doc, essentially what you're saying is that yes, monies exchange hands. How much you can't tell. But what you do know, based on your research, is that most of the delegates listened to the message, they bought into the message, and maintained most of the guys or voted the way they did because they believe that yes, something untoward went wrong in the last elections, but the guys are prepared to change their ways, and so they're giving them a second chance. That's fine. Let's now look at the research that you have conducted. That's my final question to you before you take leave of us.
Great.
Your research says 73% of these same delegates who have maintained the current crop of NPP leadership at the regional level are saying that they believe that the new patriotic party has what it takes to break the eight. But there's a significant 26 point something percent, or close to 27%, who do not think so. They do not share in that view. They've lost hope, basically.
Yes.
Are you able to throw some more light on this research, just briefly, before you take leave of us?
Great. So my visit to the field was mooted by their slogan, breaking the eight, breaking the eight. So I wanted to find out. And alongside, of course, because the regional elections was also a matter of interest, I tried to estimate the percentage that would vote in what direction. So the main one was to find out whether they believe, they themselves as the core, they have been elected, and the success of the NPP in the Ashanti region was going to base on them. The inputs they put in is what would bring out the numbers out to come and vote for them. So, and it starts with believing. Usually, human beings work towards things they believe in. So I put the question to them as to how many of them believes that breaking the eight is possible. And yes, the results is what I shined out to you. 73% fine believes that the NPP can break the eight, but a good percentage, a very significant percentage, 26%, do not believe that the NPP can break the eight. Let me give you one instance. One instance is with the overall best constituency in Ashanti region in the last election, when you measure their net gain or loss. The constituency that performed very well, the overall best in Ashanti region, was Sarpong Plains. They had a net gain of positive 5.5%. The second best got a net gain of positive 2.5. The third best got a net gain of positive 0.1. The rest were all in the negatives. So apart from those three constituencies, Sarpong Plains, Adansia Sokwa second, and Oforikrum third, which had net gains. The rest, all other constituencies in Ashanti recorded net losses, some as much as negative 17.5%. So that is a matter for another day. But take the overall best performing constituency, Sarpong Plains. They said that when the party came into power, of the over 136 communities that makes up the constituency, only 3 of them had electricity. And their conviction, for which gave them that very good performance, was that the NPP was going to take care of the rest of the communities and at least extend electricity to some of them. After 5-6 years down the line, still only those 3 people still have electricity, and they don't know what they will be telling the constituents if nothing happens from now to 2024. All they need, people in Accra talk about something else as the reason why they don't believe in breaking it, but can you imagine more? All your people in Sarpong Plains needs is for the government to extend electricity to even 1 or 2 towns, so that they will say, oh, well, before we came, it was 3. We have been able to extend it to 2 more. So help us stay in power. We can extend it to, you see, that is all they need.
Okay.
And they think for that not happening, and they don't even see that thing happening, they don't believe. And I can give you constituency by constituency reasons why they don't believe, but I think we don't have so much time for it. But generally, petty things that are resolvable are the reasons why they don't believe, alongside the national economic mood and many other things that are national in character. But they have some petty constituency level reasons why they don't believe, and then along with the national
Right.
mood also. Yeah.
Okay, so your point is that yes, 73% believe the party can win. There's a 26, well, let's say close to 27% who do not believe. But this 27% is not a lost cause. Depending on what the NPP is able to do from now to 2024, the 23 can change their minds. I think that's the point you're making.
Yes,
Right.
yes, and they
Okay.
really, here, Ashanti region is largely the breadbasket of the NPP.
Absolutely.
So they don't really have so much demands. I'm
Right.
surprised if they're able to do it. The love is like bring back the love caption. No, the love
Okay.
will come.
Okay.
So in my view, that is the first assignment for the regional executives who have been elected, and they are doing Thanksgiving
Right.
and all those parties and all those things. Immediately after that, they have work to do.
Okay.
The estimate is that this 26% can influence up to 35% of the votes that Ashanti region may have. So they better start working on them.
Okay. All right.
Yes.
Doc, it's always a pleasure talking to you. I mean, you're the man of the moment. You are the latest. You can call it kid on the block.
So we are the men of the moment. You and
I want to thank you so very much for accepting to talk to us this morning on Inside Pages. It's always a pleasure talking to you, sir. All right. So Dr. Sarpong is a poster. He's a research fellow at the Kumasi Technical University, telling us about discussing NPP politics with us this morning on Inside Pages.